In a few years, the town of West Hatford will be celebrating its 150th birthday. In anticipation of that exciting event, West Hatford Community Television, in cooperation with the Sesquicentennial Steering Committee, is going to provide a few brief glimpses at some of the people, places, and events that have gone into making our town the place that it is. Today, we're looking at Rockledge Golf Club, and my guest is John Sivell, who has been a long-time member there, and he's going to share with us some of his memories of that wonderful town asset. John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here, Ethel.
Let's start at the very beginning, how the golf course came to be a part of the town's history.
Well, the area that it occupies is about 159 acres, and it was part of the Noah Webster farm.
Our famous Noah Webster.
Right.
Right.
And so I think Noah Webster Sr. intended the farm to continue, but Noah Webster Jr. Went off to Yale and decided that maybe he was more interested in words than in weeds. So then he began his literary work.
Right.
There's a long period between that and when Mike Sherman, who is the past owner, bought the property. And he bought it back in 1913.
Wow. Okay.
And maybe he had some ideas of what to do, but it wasn't until about 1923 that he started the golf course. And he had several partners in with him in the beginning.
Mostly local people?
Yes,
Yeah.
and they were going to call it the Webster Hill Country Club or Webster Hill Golf Club.
Right.
But they ran into some expenses and things like that, and so the partners gradually dropped out. And Mike took it over by himself, and he called it the Rockledge Country Club. And
now, is that where the current golf course is?
oh yes,
Yeah.
it was all in the same location.
Okay.
Maybe holes have been altered from time to time. But at about 1923, he opened up the first 14 holes. And then about 1927, why, he added a few more holes till it reached 18. And then the course was completed in 1927.
But this was all private. I mean, he...
Yes, this was done by the individual rather than the town.
Right.
The town wasn't involved.
Okay.
Later on, of course, the property was put up for sale by Mike Sherman, and he wanted the town to have it. He didn't want it to go out to somebody else. He didn't want it to be developed into something like housing
Or a shopping center or something like that.
other
Right.
properties. So there was quite a controversy about this, whether the town should buy the property or whether something else
Or
could
sell
be
it privately.
done. Yeah,
Right.
they're always...
When was this, John?
no, this
remember?
was about 1959 when Mike died, and I think the town had made an agreement with him prior to that.
Okay, so it was in the late 50s.
Yes, but it lasted a long time because the town really didn't buy it until 1961, and it was bought from his estate. And when we think of the price now, we don't think it is very much. I think it was $1,225,000, you know, which is a great bargain. But it was a lot different in the 60s, that amount of money. But finally, the people saw the wisdom of purchasing the property so it wouldn't be developed into even housing that would be zoned for 1 acre lots and so forth. It would have been too much cost to the town for services. So the property went on for a number of years like that. It wasn't too well maintained.
Yeah, I was going to say, what was it like when the town bought it?
It had deteriorated somewhat, and the town at that time didn't really improve the conditions either. They just kind of went along with it. And it wasn't until a number of years ago that they began to take a more active interest in the maintenance of the property, because it's an expensive and valuable asset for the town.
Yeah. When Mike Sherman had it, didn't he do a lot to bring some famous golfers here to West Hatford?
He certainly did. Mike had a great ability to bring people to town. He brought Gene Sarazen to town, and that was after he had hit his famous shot down at Augusta. It was I think a 5-wood shot into the hole, and it was heard around the golf world as far as that
so
goes.
he was a big star when he came.
Yes. He also had Joyce Withered come, and most people don't know Joyce Withered around now, but she won the British Women's Amateur in, I think it was around 1930, and she won it 5 times, not just once or twice.
So she was well known at the time.
Yes.
That she was here.
Oh, yes, yes. And there he also had Sam Parks was there. Sam Parks won the United States Golf Open in, well, I don't remember the year now as far as that goes. And he was brought there, but it was the only thing that Sam really ever did as far as golf was concerned. But he was a member of the Oakwood Country Club in Pittsburgh, and he knew the course backwards and forwards. And so he had a little bit of an advantage there. And he was brought here along with a famous golfer named Jimmy Thompson. And Jimmy Thompson was the first of the long ball hitters, and he could really drive the ball out of sight. I don't know where he hit it at Rockledge, but he probably hit it pretty far.
Out to Woodpine, maybe.
Yeah, that's right.
And wasn't Tommy Armour a pro here? I know that name from golf history.
Yeah, he was quite a person. It was a lot of anecdotes about Tommy Armour. And he was there from 1944 through 1946. And
clearly before your time as a golfer there.
Yes, and yes, he was quite a person. I mean, he became famous later on in life. He went down to Florida, and he was a professional down at the Boca Raton Club in Boca Raton, Florida, and Tommy had the habit of sitting under an umbrella while he was giving lessons, and he had some assistant come along and put the ball on the tee for the person that he was teaching.
He did that here?
I don't know that he did it here. He was undergoing some personal problems when he was here, so I don't think he probably did it here, but he could get away with it down there.
Now, what about, there was another controversy involving Rockledge more recently, in the 70s, as I recall, with the clubhouse.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Not when it was first started, but when the town first took over. But later on, wasn't there another controversy that involved?
Yeah, that's true. There was a structure.
I remember something about that.
Yeah. The old clubhouse had been built by Mike Sherman. It was a beautiful thing, and probably very good in its day. A huge bar down underneath the grill room, and there were dances that were held up in the ballroom.
I remember that. Yeah.
I know a number of people said they went to their high school
something,
proms or something up there.
Right.
And but I guess it had reached its limitations at the time. But not everybody agreed with that.
Right. Now, you were playing here at that time.
That's right. And a lot of people felt that it could be renovated rather than torn down and a new clubhouse built in its place.
Right.
But it was a beautiful structure. And we've had a couple of clubhouses since, and the most recent one is very attractive and very modern looking, and has been very successful as a restaurant or a pro shop and so forth. So,
what do you remember? What are some of your memories about the old times? I know that you've told me some of the things, the way things used to be at the clubhouse. There was a snack shack or something.
Yes, well, to go back to that grill room and the bar down there, they had a huge
This
bar
is in the old clubhouse.
in the old clubhouse. And I went to visit a friend of mine, Dave Devine, who lived up on Farmington Avenue. One time he was ill and I hadn't seen him around, so I went up to his house. I'd never been there before. So he said, I'd like to show you my upstairs. I thought, well, okay, I'll go up and look in his upstairs. And he had created a kind of a leisure room up there. And in this room, he had a Tiffany lamp and a couple of tables and chairs in the room. And then there was this bar. And he said, does this bar look familiar? no, it didn't look familiar to me. He says, this is part of the Rockledge bar.
Oh, for heaven's
He said
sake.
when they were tearing down the structure, he chopped off part of it, sawed it off carefully, of course, and installed it up there in his room. So if you ever want to see part of the Rockledge bar, you can go up to Dave Devine's old house.
But you also told me that there, at one point, somebody had a snack shack or a bar somewhere near one of the holes out there?
The snack shack has since been renovated, but prior to its renovation, there was a lady who ran the snack shack out there in the middle of the golf course, and it was a terrible place. It was no floor at all. It was a dirt floor, and she had cardboard over the dirt so she could stand there. There was no running water. The water had to be brought down from up at the clubhouse for the facilities, so it wasn't too good a situation. But now they have modernized it, and there's a restroom for ladies and a restroom for the men, and it's a nice structure.
So there have been some improvements.
Yes, there were some other things out there as far as refreshments were concerned. A Mrs. Thomas at the top of the 7th tee made a delicious grape drink.
Right, that's what you were telling me about.
Yeah, and it was fine, and she had it behind the fence. The house has since been removed as far as that goes, but somehow or other Sherman had given her lifetime tenancy in this property. And so we'd go up there and buy the drinks through the fence, and sometimes it was honor system, and sometimes she was there. But then the town took over the facility, and of course the Board of Health has other rules on things like that. Right. So she then installed a Coke machine or something like that, which was okay.
Right. We're almost out of time, John. It's gone so fast. And I have more questions I want to ask you, but just briefly, there are now groups for men. I know that there's an active men's club at Rockledge.
Yes.
Is there a similar group for women?
Yes, there is. I don't know too much about the women's club, but the men's club now has about 400 members.
Wow,
it's grown tremendously in the last few years.
And you sponsor tournaments and all kinds of special events?
Yeah, they have tournaments most every weekend, and they have some activities that go during the week, and it's a great spot for the average golfer to come to.
And a wonderful asset for the town.
Oh,
I wish we could go on longer, because I know
spot.
you have more memories to share with us, but we are out of time. I want to thank you for joining us today, and thank you for watching.
Thank you very much, Ethel.